which I could actually see all your faces, but if you could just chat in the box, you know, who you are, you know, if you're a special education teacher, if you're a caregiver, I like to know my audience, I like to know who I'm speaking to. So if you could just let me know, that would be nice. Today I'm going to be, today I'm going to be talking to you about the introduction to alternative and augmentative communication, otherwise known as AAC. So I see we have a counselor, we have a teacher assistant, you know, I like to know who I'm speaking to. So it's nice to see that in the box. Thank you guys for chatting. So today I'm going to be telling you about an introduction to alternative and augmentative communication, otherwise known as AAC. And this event was made possible, it's free and made possible by the New York City Council Autism Initiative. So we thank you for that, and we will begin. So just to introduce myself, my name is Sara Tempelman. I'm a speech language pathologist here at Shema Kolainu, a school for children with autism. Excellent, excellent school. You should come check it out if you have the time. Today I'm going to be telling you, just to give you a quick overview of what we're going to be discussing today, is what AAC is, just like a brief summary, give you just a picture of what AAC actually is, who uses AAC, who can benefit from AAC, different types of AAC, because there are really a very, very large gamut of children with autism and individuals that use AAC, and there are so many kinds of AAC out there, and I'm going to give you just, you know, an overview of that. We're going to go through PECs, different applications that we use. There's going to be a small interactive portion. So in that interactive portion, we're going to hear from you guys and hear what you have to say. And we're going to go through some principles of AAC, you know, how to implement it, how to use it, and different strategies that we can use. So I see we have lots of, you know, different professionals here. We have some teachers, we have some teachers' assistants, we have some therapists, we have social workers. So it's really nice to see the different range of individuals who are participating in this webinar. And here we go, let's begin. Again, just want to tell you that there's a Q&A portion where at the end we'll have some time to, leave some time at the end to answer questions, and I'll be able to get to that. And if there are ever any questions, feel free to use the chat box. I'll be checking that throughout the presentation. And let's begin. Okay. Just to, you know, let you know, the Q&A box is for questions and answers. If you have anything you want to say, feel free to put it into the chat box where I can see it. Okay, so an introduction to alternative and augmentative communication. Here we go. So we have essential communication skills really for all individuals, not just individuals with autism, but really we're going to have essential communication skills that are here for individuals with autism, being that they have a greater challenge and greater difficulty with communication. Just specific, I want to highlight specific communication skills that individuals with autism need to, you know, have, and obviously we need to help them have those skills. So obviously these children with autism, just to give you a preface of what the kinds of children that I work with, I work mainly with preschool children, 3 to 5 years old. I really see a really large range of individuals. I have children that are nonverbal. I have children that are completely verbal. I see children that are using AAC devices. I have children that we're starting, you know, from the bottom up and really trying to get them up that hierarchy, trying to get them onto an AAC device. So I really have the range and I see the range. And if you have any questions, feel free to chat in the chat box. Okay, so we want to establish a social connection, right? We need to teach children with autism to engage with others. Being that doesn't come easily to children with autism, we really want to establish that social connection. We need to teach these children with autism to really engage with others and get along with their peers. We need to teach them to understand others, right? When we have social interactions, neurotypical individuals, right? We can read body language, we can read facial expressions, but children with autism really struggle with that. And we need to teach them that so they can interpret social situations on their own. We also need them to be able to communicate their thoughts, wants, needs, and ideas. And that's really the most important. We really want these children to be able to communicate. Everybody, we all have wants, we all have needs, we all have the desire. We are social human beings. Human beings by nature are social. And we love to communicate with other people. And really, it's essential to teach these children with autism, teach these individuals how to communicate their thoughts, how to communicate their desires, how to communicate their ideas. And we really need to teach them these ideas and these techniques and ways that they can communicate. So just for starters, to give a preface before we go into AAC specifically, I want to preface it by saying that individuals with autism are naturally visual learners, right? There's three kinds of modalities when it comes to learning. There's auditory, meaning listening, hearing something. There's visual, right? Seeing something. And then there's kinesthetic, right? Individuals with autism really struggle with the auditory modality. Just by hearing something, it's much more difficult, to comprehend that. And I think we could all understand that, right? If you're sitting in a math class, or whether when you were in school or when you were in high school, and you were trying to understand those math concepts. When something was visual and you saw it in front of you, it just made more sense and it was more easily grasped, right? The concept was easier to grasp. So individuals with autism really, really benefit from visual learning. Why is that so? Very clear. It helps organize their environment, right? Individuals with autism, children specifically, have a lot of visual schedules, right? In the classrooms here, the teachers always have like a visual schedule, whether it's, in the morning or in the afternoon, whatever routines they have. If something is made visual, it's much more clear to grasp, much more easily understood. It also reduces anxiety, right? When children know what's expected and what's happening next, they're automatically less anxious. It increases their learning efficiency, right? If you have a visual and you see and you could understand it more easily, then it makes more sense to you and it's more easily grasped. Again, visual learning also helps establish attention, right? If you're just hearing something, you don't attend to it as much. But if you see it in front of you and it's clear and it's in front of you and you see it, oh, you're going to look at it and it'll make sense. So just this is a cute cartoon where it says visual thinking matters, and you see one individual hearing 1 + 1 = 2, and he's all confused, like, what does that mean? And then you see the visual, oh, 1 box + 1 box makes 2 boxes, right? And it just makes sense. When something's visual, it just automatically is more clear. And when you see it, you really can understand. Okay, let's move on. So here I just incorporated a few visuals, different visuals that we use here that, individuals with autism really benefit from. Here's just an individual schedule of arrival at school. So number 1, we take off our coat. Number 2, open your backpack, and so on and so forth. It just goes through the routine. So when a child comes into the classroom, they know what's expected, they know what comes next, and it's clear. There's picture icons that they recognize, and they're taught those icons, and then they know what that means, and they can really follow through with the morning routine easily. Here's a classroom schedule where they go through, the schedule of the day. We go through circle time, then work. So when a child is, confused or doesn't know what's happening, they look back at the schedule and they see, oh, okay, we're in the middle of work time. Next is going to come snack. And obviously at the beginning of the year, it's taught. And then by the end of the year, as the year goes on and the year progresses, the children really understand the schedule of the day and the routine, and they're less anxious and they can learn better. Here we have a visual, in the classroom, in the bathroom. How do we wash our hands? And obviously this is very important during COVID and during this whole, pandemic, but we want the children to understand the importance of washing hands and how we do it and how to do it properly. Here's a visual support during a lesson time or during academics, where what do? How do we listen? Our body is still, my eyes are looking, my ears are listening, my hands are still, and so on. And last, this is one that could be incorporated at home for those parents here or caregivers, where, the morning routine, what do? And instead of getting frustrated, we really could just refer back. Did you do your morning routine? Let's look at your schedule. Did you do that? Did you brush your teeth? Did you comb your hair? Did you get dressed? And so on. So it's really keeps things structured, keeps the children focused, keeps them less anxious. And if they know what's expected, they really can produce and provide better results. So just some statistics: 80% of children with autism younger than age 5 do not display any useful speech. So that's it's a scary statistic, but it's true. And that's why in these years, the 3 to 5-year-old range, which is most of my caseload, is such an important and crucial time period where children are learning language. They're getting used to it. They're just learning it and they're understanding. And if we could give them and give them and give them in this crucial period, it's super important and it really can make a big difference. So traditionally, the way speech therapy, starting with that nonverbal child, the child that's really nonverbal and not really giving you much, and that you don't know if they understand, if they don't. The traditional way to start, which I do a lot, is really teaching through imitation. What is that? That means that, how do children learn? Children learn from the very beginning. When a baby is born, how do they learn? They learn through imitation. From the first minute you smile at them, they smile back at you. They're learning, they're imitating, and they learn from their environment. And the first clappy, when they clap their hands, they're copying you. You say clap, clap, they clap. And that's how children learn, and that's eventually how they learn language. So imitation is really the starting point for language. How do we teach language? through imitation, right? So I'll sit with a nonverbal child and maybe we'll just imitate rolling a car back and forth. We'll go, 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 and then give the child the turn to, go back and forth with their car. And that back and forth, that imitation is really important because that's the foundation for language and for developing language. The issue with that, is really that it really requires a lot from the child. It requires the child to sit, it requires the child to focus, it requires the child to listen, and that can really be a very, very lengthy process. I'm not saying to do away with the imitation. It's a great, great, great technique and we should keep it going. But we need something in the interim. We need something that will help the child communicate and help them get across their wants and needs, because starting from imitation is a long way to go and it's a long haul. We got to keep the imitation going. We got to keep those imitation skills going and we got to work on that. But we have to also implement something to help them communicate. And this brings us to AAC. So AAC stands for Alternative and Augmentative Communication. And what that means is clear based on the definition of the words. We have alternative and augmentative. Alternative means alternate, an alternate form of communication, an alternate way to communicate. Child has no communication skills. We need to give them a way to communicate. And that's an AAC device that would be completely alternate, a different way of communicating. But there's also augmentative communication. Augmentative communication means to augment, to help, to aid communication. And this is where some people, confuse and think AAC, oh, my child's not talking, give them something else to talk with. But in reality, AAC, there's two A's there. There's alternative. Yes, we can alternate and use a different form of communication, but there's also the augmentative portion, which is so important to understand that there's also the portion where you have a child who just needs a little more help, needs a little bit of a push to start communicating or to help them communicate more functionally, more importantly, and more clearly to their environment, to the people around them. And that's where AAC really incorporates both an alternate form or an augmentative form of communication. So ASHA, which is the American Speech, Language, and Hearing Association, defines AAC very nicely. And they say that AAC is all forms of communication other than oral speech. So it's all forms of communication other than obviously oral, which is speaking, that are used to express thoughts, needs, wants, and ideas. And that's really what we want these children, these individuals with autism to do. We want them to express their thoughts. We want them to express their needs. We want to know what they want. We want to know what they feel. We want to know what they're saying. And AAC is really, really helpful in that sense. And here's a short clip just to give an overview, a little bit of AAC before we go into the details.
Augmentative and alternative communication, also known as AAC, is a way for an individual to communicate when they do not have the physical ability to use verbal speech or writing. AAC systems are designed to help people express their thoughts, needs, wants, and ideas. AAC can range from a simple set of picture symbols on a communication board up to a computer system that is programmed to speak with words or messages. AAC might be a temporary system that is used while a child's speech and language are developing, or might be the individual's primary means of communication for a lifetime. AAC is used by those with a wide range of speech and language impairments. Common causes for severe speech disability include congenital conditions such as cerebral palsy and autism. Also, many people acquire conditions that result in the loss of speech. Some common examples include amyotrophic lateral sclerosis or Lou Gehrig's disease, head injuries, and Parkinson's disease. AAC can help people who are not able to talk at all. It can also be a helpful strategy if a child is talking but is difficult to understand. The use of AAC strategies can help children improve their ability to interact with others and to communicate better at home, at school, and in the community. Using AAC can also help decrease inappropriate behaviors, such as crying or tantrums that are often due to the child's difficulty with communication. There are a wide variety of ways that people access AAC. Access is the way an individual makes selections on a communication board or speech-generating device. Some of the access methods used for AAC include direct selection by pointing or reaching, scanning using a switch connected to a device, head pointing, and eye control. Selecting the best way to communicate can be a complex process. It's important to get an evaluation by a group of professionals who are qualified to evaluate the necessary skills to use an AAC system successfully. An evaluation should involve a team of professionals working together. In addition to the AAC user and his or her family and caregivers, this team often includes a speech-language pathologist, a physician, an occupational therapist, or physical therapist.
Okay, so the point I really want to drive home about, from this video, that's really important to keep in mind, is the fact that a lot of these children with autism that are struggling with communication, we often see negative behaviors, we see tantruming, we see frustration, and a lot of times, I'm not saying always, but a lot of times the root of the behavior is the need and desire to communicate. And since these children have such a struggle and such a difficulty communicating, they end up tantruming, they end up having negative behaviors because people can't understand them. People have difficulty understanding what they want. And imagine if that was you and you were trying to tell someone something, but they just weren't understanding what you're saying, you'd be really, really frustrated. And that's why using AAC can really benefit these children, not just in terms of communication, but also in terms of their behaviors, which in essence is rooted in communication. So now let's go through who uses AAC. So we have a few scenarios of different children that maybe can possibly use AAC, and I want to hear from you guys what you think. Do you think they can benefit? Do you think they cannot benefit? So let's meet Amanda. Amanda is an 8-year-old girl with apraxia of speech. She is sociable and enjoys playing with her classmates. She has difficulty with speech production, which often limits her social interactions and ability to participate in classroom discussions. Can Amanda benefit from AAC? So let's hear from you. What do you think? So I see a lot of yeses coming up already, and yes, Amanda can benefit from AAC, and we'll go on and see what kinds of AAC are available and what would make sense for a child like Amanda. But yes, Amanda can definitely benefit from an AAC system. This doesn't mean that we're going to, forget her speech because she's unintelligible or she has difficulty speaking, right? But we still want to give her some kind of communication device, some kind of way to communicate her wants and needs. Now let's meet Andrew. Andrew is a 4-year-old adorable boy with significant speech and language delays. He is a sociable child and has a repaired cleft lip and palate. Andrew's speech is highly unintelligible, and he often gets frustrated when people don't understand him. Can Andrew benefit from AAC? And I already do see some yeses coming up. Thank you for your participation. Makes it all the more exciting. And yes, Andrew can benefit from AAC. This doesn't mean that we're not going to work on his articulation. This doesn't mean that we're going to just forget about, oh, he's got a cleft lip and palate, he won't speak. Not at all. We want to work on those articulation skills and have him speaking, but at the same time, we want him to be able to communicate his wants and needs. And yes, I see someone said alongside more traditional therapy. Exactly. This doesn't mean that we're just taking the AAC and bringing it in and, oh, forget your speech, you're just going to communicate with AAC. Not at all. It's, in essence, it's helping him so that he can be more intelligible and people can understand him and so on. Let's move on and meet Larry. So a little bit different. We've been speaking a lot about little children, but Larry is a 70-year-old male who has ALS and is slowly losing control of the muscles throughout his body. He enjoys spending time with family and friends. His family members are worried that soon Larry won't be able to communicate his wants and needs. Again, here's an individual who's 70 years old, okay? You think he can benefit from an AAC, and already I see yes, 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 yes. So absolutely. Larry's a 70-year-old male. Just because he's getting older, it will really relieve, I see someone said it will relieve his frustration. Exactly. If he's going to be 70, he's going to get older and he's going to try to communicate and his family members won't understand what he needs or when he needs something, he is going to be very frustrated, and it's really sad to see that. So if we can give him something that will be able to benefit him and help him communicate, that would really be beneficial. There's actually a device, an IV system, where individuals, all they need is control of their eyes. And I know a lot of individuals with ALS are benefiting from this. So it's really incredible where they just literally don't need to use anything other than their eyes, and they just gaze back and forth, and the device tracks their eye gaze, and they can actually select icons, spell out words or whatever they want to say, and just by moving their eyes, which is actually excellent for individuals with ALS who are losing control of their muscles, and the last control that stays is their eye gaze, and that's incredible that that's out there. And now we have Hannah. Hannah is a 5-year-old girl with autism spectrum disorder. Hannah does not have meaningful verbal language. She often engages in self-stimulatory behaviors and attempts to communicate by pointing to desired items. Hannah often engages in tantrum behaviors when those around her don't understand what she is trying to communicate. Can Hannah benefit from AAC? So this is a more typical scenario where we're probably all familiar with, being that this child has autism and has a very difficult time, speaking and communicating verbally. So Hannah can definitely benefit from an AAC system, and this might be more of an alternate, route, alternative communication. At the same time, it's important to understand that a lot of children understand and learn from their AAC devices, and it really depends on what's on there, like you said, right? Depending what's on the system, there's various kinds of systems available, and obviously we want to make the right choice for each child. So who can benefit from AAC? So in the first video, I know you saw a lot of children with CP, because interestingly enough, AAC was not originally created for children with autism. It was really originally created for children with CP, with cerebral palsy. And these are individuals whose cognition is completely intact, but couldn't express themselves verbally. Therefore, someone came up with this idea of AAC, and incredibly enough, it's really been moving along, not just to CP, but autism, Down syndrome, post-stroke, ALS, like we said, and there's really a variety of individuals who can benefit from AAC. AAC is utilized when an individual has limited, unintelligible, or no functional speech. Like we said before, it's not just those nonverbal children, it's also from individuals who are unintelligible, anyone that has limited access to communication, limited ability to communicate. And then again, to reiterate, individuals that have some speech skills are encouraged to use AAC as an augmentative form of communication to ensure successful communication. And moving along, we have a short video.
I think the biggest change you see once you put assistive technology in is how much personality comes out of these kids, because so much of their life, especially when they're completely nonverbal, is people telling them what to do or giving them a forced choice of two. And when you give them these devices, you really see their personality come out, and you get to learn them not just as students, but like as people, which has been really cool.
I want turn. Please. I want turn, please.
Augmentative and alternative communication devices are ways that students communicate when they don't have their verbal abilities to communicate as their primary means. So it's vitally important we have a way for them to communicate in academics and social situations, and certainly to express themselves throughout the day.
I talked to our assistive technology teacher. She came out, she did an assessment last year for one of my students. She's like, okay, I think we are ready for that. And so you go to a training and you learn how the device is structured, because it's not structured, like language is structured in your brain. It's all about the motor pattern. It's all about the icons.
The content that we cover in the trainings talks about language development. It covers technical aspects such as programming and customizing an AAC device for an individual user, and that's training that teachers and speech pathologists and families really need. That's something that's very, very important to provide.
Last year is when I really started using augmentative and alternative communication systems with my students, but you do have to start small, and you really do have to intentionally teach it. I always think back, like, what is typical language development for a child who's going to speak? Like, first they need to hear it constantly. They need to be exposed to it constantly. So even if your kid isn't able to use it independently, modeling how to use the device is really, really important. Showing them constantly really helps them engage with it and understand the power of it. And also, they're going to make mistakes. They're going to say things that don't make sense, and that's okay.
You want a turn?
Miss Winkler.
Oh, you like a turn?
Turn, Miss Winkler.
Go put that on my calendar. Awesome! Yeah, count it out for me.
And so just thinking about it in the mindset of typically developing language has really helped me in understanding, like, I need to give them time to explore. I need to give them time where I don't give them feedback. That's been my hardest thing. I constantly want to correct my kids, saying, no, try this, do this, you're not doing it the right way. But letting them kind of explore it on their own and make mistakes is also really, really powerful.
It can open up a whole world. It can open up untapped communication potential. It can allow students to express themselves and self-advocate when they've never had that opportunity before.
As soon as you're able to have a conversation with them about, their dog that they played with on the weekend, it really strengthens that relationship, and then students are so much more willing to come in, to do the work, to just be happy at school. And when the students are happy and engaged at school, the academics come so much easier.
I saw the Q&A was popping up. So at the end, we're going to really touch on, these questions and answers. I want to get through what we're going to discuss, and then at the end, we'll have a question and answer forum where you can ask your question. So let's move on.
I think the biggest change.
So now we're going to go into the various kinds of AAC and the types of AAC that are available. Because there's such a large range of individuals that need AAC or that can benefit from AAC, there's also a large range and various kinds of AAC available. So there's three main categories. There's NoTech, there's LowTech, and HighTech. Let's go into each one. So for starters, let's start with NoTech. And interestingly enough, NoTech is really used by all of us every single day. Communication that does not require any extra equipment is known as NoTech AAC, right? So really, NoTech communication is important for everyone to use. So what's involved in NoTech? There's hand gestures, right? When your friend, looks at you and gives you a thumbs up with a wink, that means, hey, you did a good job. Or you give a high five, that's also a hand gesture. A fist pump, pointing to something. Those are all gestures that are used and really benefit communication and make communication more clear, and really can, without using the verbal portion, you're really passing over messages. Then there's facial expressions, right? If you tell your friend a story that's something that happened to you, or you're telling a funny story or something, and your friend just looks at you with like a confused look, she's confused, and you have to clarify what you had just said. Then there's body language, right? Body language really speaks a lot, and just by the way, without even seeing their mouth, without even seeing what they're saying, even without seeing their face, just the way they're standing, just the way they're moving. If someone's walking like hunched and head down, they're sad about something, body language really speaks a lot. So that's without any technology, without, you wouldn't even think of this as AAC, but really it is. It's an alternate form of communicating. It could be you're using it to augment communication. It could be you're going, good job, with a thumbs up. That's really augmenting and enhancing communication and helping the communication piece, but it is a form of AAC. Now there's LowTech. LowTech is communication that requires additional equipment, but does not require a battery. Okay, so communication that requires additional equipment. So there is some kind of, additional equipment involved, but it doesn't require a battery, meaning it's low tech, not really using much technology. And it can often be implemented right away, meaning because there's no technology, you don't need to go through the whole process of getting an AAC system, but really it can be implemented right away because of that process is not necessary. And it's really easy to implement in that sense, but there are certain limitations to using low-tech AAC, and we're going to go through them. So here are just some pictures of low-tech AAC. A very simple picture board where the child would point to what they want. So let's say they point, I want, eat, and then the child is hungry. Or if you're asking them yes, no questions, they would point to yes or no. If they want more of something, they point to more. So this is really using a pointing, using their finger to point to what they want. And there's various kinds of communication boards. So this is a more robust, more complex communication board. But if you see, there are a lot of words here, which is interesting, which we'll go into also, a lot of core words. And what core words are words that are very versatile, words that can be used in various scenarios. We don't want to pigeonhole our students into, just using words in a certain specific scenario, right? If a child's learning about a certain book, we don't just want him to, have a communication board for that book that he's learning. We want him to really use words that are versatile, that can be used at home, that can be used in school, that can be used on the bus, and so on and so forth. So here you see there's lots of versatile words, right? Like more, put, help, right? If he needs help with something, he just taps to the help, points to the help, and then he knows he's going to get help. Go, stop, choose, in, out, here, there, and you really can see, different adjectives, different words that are used in various, lots of different scenarios. Let's move on and see another one. So here's another communication board. I like this. I don't like this. I need help. Is this right? More work, please. Different job. What's next? I'm done. Need a break, and so on. Here we have, this is not necessarily specifically communication, but this is just a schedule, visual learning again, where the child chooses what he's working for, where I'll have a list of icons in my room of, different toys I have, different things they like, and they'll choose one, put it on, and when they get 5 tokens, they'll get what they're working for. So here are some, more low-tech, light-tech AAC systems. Over here we have some button icons for children that have a more difficult time with specifically pointing, where they can tap certain buttons that say certain things. Or we have a PECS book, which we'll go into PECS very deeply. We'll give a very clear, thorough explanation of PECS because I find that one to be very useful and very helpful. Where there are picture icons, and we'll go into it, where you'll exchange pictures. The child wants a bag of chips. They're going to give you a picture icon of the chips, and in exchange they get the chips. Here's a more portable one, a small one where they can keep, attached to their belt loop, and so on. Now that there's, high-tech AAC available, it's less likely that you'll see, children using these low-tech AAC systems just because they're more cumbersome and they're more hard to deal with, and they're just difficult to carry along like this, like a textbook like this. It's difficult for a child to, walk around lugging this loose leaf full of picture icons and having to flip through the picture icons to find what they want. And that's where we go into high-tech AAC, which is probably what you're more familiar with and what you've been seeing in lots of these videos. Is what is high-tech AAC? It's a communication system that utilizes technology and requires a battery. So that's, where you see those iPads with the various, devices and different iPad applications that really help children communicate and help them get across what they want to hear and what they want to say and what they want to eat and what they want to do. So these high-tech AAC systems are truly the most expensive, right? These applications are very expensive. Having to get an iPad, download the applications on them, they're very expensive, but in essence, they're also more robust and they're really more, there's more available on them. There's more room for greater vocabulary. There's access to more vocabulary and a lot more, language and a lot more communication. There's more socialization on these apps and these things. So let's go into high-tech AAC. So here are some high-tech AAC devices where you can see they're mostly on iPads or designated devices. And what happens is the child will tap, they'll point to what they want, and the speech generating device will produce it for them. So we call it their voice. A lot of times they'll go into a classroom and taking a child out for a speech session, and I'll be like, oh, go get your talker, because calling it a talker is really what it is. You're not saying go get your iPad. It's not their iPad, it's their talker. It's their voice. It's what they're using to communicate. And we have to realize that. And another just brings us across another point, which we'll go into later also, but taking away an AAC device from a child is not fair. It's like taking a child and covering their mouth and saying, you can't speak now. The children always have to have access to these AAC systems. Really, it's their voice, it's their ability to talk, it's their way to communicate, and we need to give them access to it. So just here we have some high-tech AAC devices. There's the Nova Chat, there's Touch Chat, there's Dynavox, and there's really so many. We're not going to go into each one specifically so much because that would be endless. If you have specific questions, feel free to ask. But what we will do is give a brief overview of, the AAC systems available and how they work and how we can implement that in a therapy session and so on. So let's go into it a little bit. So here's an app called Proloquo to Go, where the child will, select certain icons, choose an icon, and then the speech generating device will produce it. So if he says I, then he'll choose love to talk with my Proloquo to Go, and then he'll tap the top where this is called the sentence bar, and the device in essence will repeat what he said, and it'll say, I love to talk with my Proloquo to Go. And it's basically the child's voice and ability to speak, which is incredible. Here's another one. This is actually using the GoTalk application, and this child has a page all about me, and it's just amazing how the child can literally answer questions, basic questions. When you meet someone for the first time and you're asking them what their name is, how old they are, and this child can go and open her About Me page and choose. You ask her, what's your name? She will click on my name is Jessica, and the speech generating device will say, my name is Jessica. And if you ask her what her favorite color is, she'll say red. This app, just to repeat, I see someone ask, this app is GoTalk. So really there's various features that are different in each app, and I'm not going to go into the specific features because that's really a case-by-case basis based on what the child needs, based on the child's various abilities, and really that's for an AAC technology, specialist and, an AAC evaluator to decide based on, the report from the SLP and the various individuals involved, professionals involved in the evaluation process. But this specific app is Go Talk, where the child is answering questions about themselves, what's your birthday, what's your favorite food, how many kids do you have in your family, and the child who's nonverbal, who would not be able to communicate and not be able to express themselves either clearly or at all, they can really go and answer all those questions, which is really, really nice. So technology is truly, truly incredible. So now we're going to go into a low-tech device, which I find to be super helpful. A lot of times low-tech devices and, the ones that are cumbersome are not utilized so much because now there's higher tech devices and there's also, a lot of these more robust vocabulary systems. But I do want to go into PECS, which is the Picture Exchange Communication System. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with it. You can let me know in the chat box if you are familiar with it. But what PECS really does, okay, so I see some people are familiar with it, which is nice. So I'm not going to have to start from the bottom up, but we will give you a good overview of what PECS is and how it works. So PECS is the Picture Exchange Communication System. So let's see. So what is PECS? PECS, basically what I really love about PECS is the fact that it's super, super, clear, and it really teaches that basis of communication, where the child really learns what is involved in communication. And what's involved in communication? That exchange, that ability to, ask someone for something. And if I want something, I'm not just going to get it by crying or tantruming. I have to do something to get what I want. And the Picture Exchange Communication System really, really teaches that. So I see someone said that they have a child who stimmed on the iPad app for AAC, but did so much better with PECS. So that's really a good point, where a lot of times children are not ready for an AAC system yet, and they still need some kind of communication, which is where PECS is really, really nice. And there's actually, a lot of research that does prove that PECS really improves and really can increase speech production. So that's a good point. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. So let's go into PECS, the Picture Exchange Communication System. So what is PECS? PECS allows individuals with little or no communication skills to communicate using pictures. And basically what it is that users are taught to approach another person and give them a picture of a desired item in exchange for that item. So basically what it is a really clear, concise, program where the child is given picture icons. Let's say the child loves chips, right? And they're given a picture icon with a picture of chips. And you are holding that bag of chips. And the child really, really wants those chips. What do they have to do? They have to give you the picture icon. And in exchange for giving you the picture icon, they get a chip. And very, very quickly, the student learns, oh, wow, if I want those chips, I got to ask for it. I can't just cry. I can't just tantrum. I have a way to communicate. And it really empowers these children and really teaches them that they can communicate, because it doesn't require attending skills. They don't need to look at the clinician. They don't need to look at anything. They just need to see that icon, take it, give it to you, and then they get something back. And it really teaches them that crucial basis of communication, that when I want something, I have to ask for it. So what is the goal of PECS? It's really that it teaches a fast, self-initiating, and functional communication system. Studies show that PECS really does help develop verbal language, which is interesting. And it also decreases negative behaviors that occur due to the inability to request desired items. So that's a very good point, like we said earlier, where children a lot of times have these negative behaviors. They'll be tantruming, they'll be exhibiting real frustration because they can't communicate and they can't say what they want and what they need. And if you just give them that empowerment and teach them they can communicate, they can ask for what they want, you'll see those negative behaviors really, really reduce. So let's just see, I see the chat buzzing a little bit. I tried to turn the volume on then other modifications, but we decided to put it on hold. Right, okay, that makes sense, meaning that the AAC was not, the child was obviously not ready for the AAC at that point, and they were really better off using PECS. Interesting. Someone else said that they made their own with magazine pictures before PECS existed. Incredible, that's awesome. I used to use this to help someone order when eating out. It was great, and the person was able to try new things. Exactly. So it really, really is beneficial for the right child. I'm not saying that every child can benefit from a PEC system, not at all. I do think AAC, higher tech devices are definitely beneficial more. So let's move on. Someone asked, where can I get the picture to help my students communicate? So really, you don't even need to get them anywhere. There is something called BoardMaker, which provides those, icons that you're seeing in a lot of these things, but a lot of them you can get on Google. Really, like you can order online, but you can really just Google. You can just Google whatever you're looking for, and you can even screenshot with an iPad or a device, and you can really get those pictures, but also not just the symbols. If let's say you're starting really, really low, you're starting from the bottom, let's say the child likes chips and they have a specific bag of chips that they like, you can go and take a picture of that chips bag that they like and make that into an icon, make it yourself. So there's no need to go to necessarily get BoardMaker, which is very expensive. As I see someone said that, yes, that's true. But you can really make it yourself, which is nice. You can make it tailor-made to that child, that specific child that needs it or that would benefit from it. So, and the big thing about PECs is that users learn to initiate communication, which is really nice. With PECs, you're really teaching them that basis of communication, that ability to initiate communication. You're not even starting the communication piece. They're starting the communication because you're just sitting there holding that bag of chips, holding those cookies, and that child has to ask for it. And you're not going to give it to them if they just grab on the chips. You got to teach them that. You have to take the picture and ask for it. Right, exactly. Someone said that they have a laminator and you can make your own symbols and pictures. Exactly. You literally can go on Google, print out pictures, take a picture of something that the child likes, and really, really, it's homemade. You can make it yourself. It shouldn't be too expensive, and it really helps. Someone else said students who do not have an IEP-driven communication device, I had parents create their own PECs for during remote learning just by cutting out using an old tray. Exactly. So really, you can be very creative with this, and during remote learning was definitely a challenge for some children, missing out on those, but you can teach the parents how to do it. You can send home some PECs that they were using in school and teach the parents how to implement the PECs at home, which is also beneficial because in essence, we really want the communication devices and the AAC to be implemented everywhere, not just in school. So having that remote learning where you're able to see the children and see them using it is really, really nice, where you can teach the parents and guide them how to use the PECs. And some parents who are not ready to think about AAC find PECs less intimidating. Exactly. So when you're going to suggest an AAC device to a parent, they might be a little hesitant at first, or they might not really want it, or so on and so forth. And rightfully so. Every parent has the right to decide what's best for their child. But PECs is less intimidating. That's a good point. And really, PECs can benefit in that sense. I actually have a student that I was working with this year that came in at the beginning of the year, adorable little boy, who came in at the beginning of the year, really, really very high functioning child. And he was often singing to himself. He had the words, he had the language, but he just, was singing to himself and not really using the words to communicate. And I remember talking to the mother at the beginning of the year, and I said, what's something I like to ask the parents at the beginning of the year? What do you want your child to gain this year in speech? And what, how can we, improve his communication? Just because when you get a feel from the parents, it's nice to hear what they want and what they feel their child needs at home in terms of communication. And I remember this mom telling me, I really want him, I know he knows how to sing. I know he knows how to, sing all these songs really well, and he's so good at it, but I wanted to communicate. I wanted to tell me what he wants, when he wants it. And he was really not using his words to communicate at all. And we introduced the PEC system, which was, at first someone was like, wow, why are you using PECs? He's so high functioning. He's so smart. He's brilliant. He's so smart, but he really wasn't understanding that portion of communication and understanding the concept that I need to do something to get something. I can't just grab, I can't just cry. I need to do something for it. And we introduced PECs early on. We gave him the picture icon, started with chips. He had a picture icon of chips, and he would give it back and forth. And we always pair the picture icon with words. So when he gave me the chip icon, I said, oh, you want chips? Here's chips, tell me chips. And even if they don't respond, they're just giving you that icon, you give it back to them, the chips. And he really is now, using full sentences. I want to eat chips, and verbal, completely verbal. And we really started from the bottom up because he had all that language. He had all those words. He was able to sing songs by heart, but he was missing that component of really understanding that when you want something, you have to ask for it. So here I see some action on the chat. should the pictures be individualized for the nonverbal student, and about how many copies should be made? So every child with PECs, you know, really needs to be tailor-made to that child, because you really start with something that's very, very desirable to that child, because you want to teach them the concept of initiating communication. And the only way they're going to initiate communication if it's something that they really, really want. So if one child really loves his cookies, you're going to start with cookies. And if one child really loves his ball that he plays with, you're going to start with ball. You're really starting from the bottom up with something they really like. And that's going to teach them that they, you know, that's really going to make it meaningful. I see someone said that, exactly. It's going to be make it very meaningful to them, because it's something that they actually like and really, really want. About how many copies should be made. So I would start with one in the classroom, and then eventually we're going to go through. So PECS has a lot of phases, different stages of PECS, and we're going to go through that, and you'll see exactly what's done and how it's done. And you obviously start in one, you know, one environment, and then we want to generalize it to various environments. Okay, let's move on. So PECS phase 1, how to communicate. So in phase 1, there's 6 phases, and phase 1 is teaching the child how to communicate. So the child learns to exchange single pictures for items and activities he or she really, really wants. Okay, so let's see this video, which really explains phase 1 and how it's done very clearly.
Phase 1 of the training is the physically assisted exchange. No time will be spent on teaching the child prerequisite skills such as sitting or looking at the trainer. The initial setting takes advantage of the child's strong interest in the reinforcing item.
Very nice.
2 trainers are used to ensure that the child will learn to communicate spontaneously. 1 trainer is the child's communicative partner. The communicative partner sits across from the child and draws the child's attention to the initial training item. The other trainer is the physical prompter, or the trainer who will physically assist the child to engage in communicative behavior. The communicative partner draws the child's attention to the reinforcer primarily by showing the reinforcer to the child. The communicative partner does nothing else to aid the child. She does not ask questions or talk to the child. Once the child sees a favorite item, the natural response is to reach for it. This is the child's first initiation. It is at this point that the physical prompter guides this reach to what will become the communicative behavior. Picking up the picture of the favorite item, reaching toward the communicative partner, and releasing the picture into the communicative partner's hand. Once the communicative partner has the picture, she reacts as if the child has asked for the item.
Fred.
The child is given time to enjoy the item. The sequence is then repeated.
Fred.
The objective in PECS is spontaneous communication, so the physical prompter must wait until the child has initiated by beginning to reach for the training item or the picture before providing physical guidance.
Jeff.
If the child loses interest in the initial item, a second item and its corresponding picture are used.
Cocoa Puff.
It is important that a child learns to communicate with a variety of people, so the trainer should reverse roles or new trainers may be introduced. Training continues until the child independently picks up the picture, reaches to the communicative partner, and puts the picture into his hand without prompting or assistance. The training should end before the child tires of the rewarding item.
You know, 2 important points I want to highlight from this video. First of all, you're not asking the child any questions. You really want to get them to initiate that communication. So when you hold up that reinforcing item, whether it's the chips, whether it's the cookies, whether it's a bowl, whatever that reinforcing item is for that child, you don't want to ask them, do you want? What do you want? Do you want the bowl? No, no, no. You're not asking them anything. You're holding up the item and you're getting them to initiate the communication. And you see here that there's a communicative partner, and then there's the person that's prompting, the physically assisted prompt. So you don't want, as a communication partner, you're not the one prompting the child to give the icon to you. You want someone else to be there to help aid that communication for them to understand that I have to give that to the person that I need to ask for the item from. And the other point that was very important on this video is at the end where she said, we want to make sure that we stop the picture exchange before the child tires out from that reinforcing item, right? We don't want them to get tired out from the reinforcing item and not want to request for it. So we don't want to, overly do this too much in the sense that they're going to get tired and satiated from the reinforcer. So someone said that they see PECS being used, but not according to the protocol, which undermines its effectiveness as a student does not reach the level of independence. So that is true in a certain sense where, if you do it according to the protocol, you're definitely going to get better results. And we're going to go through the pros and cons of PECS, because as much as PECS is really beneficial and really helpful, there are some cons, which we'll go into. So phase 2, distance and persistence. So once you get to the point where the child is independent and they're able to give the icon to you independently without the prompts, we want them to take this newly learned skill of exchanging pictures and generalize it to more environments with different people and across different settings. So I'm just looking at the Q&A. If you put in questions into the chat, it would be beneficial because I have that up, so it's easier for me to see that. I see some questions. So we're gonna have Q&A open-ended at the end where we can answer most questions. I wanna keep the flow of the presentation so it's clear, and I'll use the Q&A. If you have specific questions that are not applicable to right now, you can put it in the Q&A and we'll get to it at the end, hopefully. So distance and persistence. We have newly learned skill set is generalized to more environments with different people and across distances. So that's phase 2 where the child is generalizing it, because if we just do this in the speech room and in the speech room the child is using PECS, that's not very helpful for his environment. We want to translate it to the classroom, translate it eventually to the home, and really teach that child that they're not just communicating with their speech therapists. They got to communicate with their teachers, with their teachers' assistants, with their caregivers. And we want to generalize the skill to other environments and other individuals. Another thing you want to also do is also increase the distance. So when a child is becoming independent with the requesting with the phase 1, then I would maybe, move a little bit further from the child, make myself busy with something while holding their reinforcer, and the child has to get up out of their chair, bring me the picture icon to request what they want. So that's increasing the distance. Then we have phase 3. Phase 3 is picture discrimination. So this is where we bring in another icon. So the child is learning to select from 2 or more picture icons to ask for the desirable item. The picture icons are placed into a communication book. This is where the communication book comes in, and it's like a loose leaf with a binder with Velcro strips where pictures are stored and easily removed for communication. So this is where the child is learning to discriminate between 2 picture icons. Phase 4 is the sentence structure. So the child learns to construct simple sentences on a detachable sentence strip using the I want plus desirable item to request the desired item, okay? So in this phase, the child is learning to make a sentence. So, you can't just use one word and say help. If you want something, you have to ask for it. You have to use a full sentence. I want help, right? Now, and then they would detach the sentence strip and give it to their teacher, give it to their therapist, give it to whoever they are requesting from. Phase 5, answering questions. So in this phase, once they're already initiating communication and they're already asking for things on their own, you wanna ask them and ask them questions. What do you want? And then they will use a full sentence to respond. I want, and whatever they're asking for, whatever they want. And then we'll go on to phase 6, which is the last phase, which is commenting. So PECS does really work up the requesting abilities, which is really it's its advantage because it teaches the child to initiate communication, but it's also a disadvantage because the children sometimes get stuck really just requesting, and it limits that socialization and the other, commenting areas. But phase 6 does incorporate commenting where the child can learn to comment and answer questions, such as what do you see, what do you hear, what is it? Right here you see in the picture, the child is looking at a book with a picture of a dog, and then they're saying, I see dog. So that is a later stage of PECS, and what I really feel in my, expertise, my experience is that once you're at this point of PECS where the child is really using a full sentence and seeing a dog and saying, I see a dog, you're better off on a high-tech device where they have more robust language, more vocabulary and more, more greater opportunities to use more language. Because when they're at this point, they're at a high enough level, generally speaking. Obviously, it's a case-by-case basis, but once they're at this point of PECS, generally speaking, they're pretty much ready for a device. So a child can also learn to use sentences beginning with I feel, I see, right? So it is definitely not just requesting, it's also commenting, telling you what they see, but then again, it's cumbersome, it's hard to, carry around and take with you. Here's a video of a higher level child using PECS, and here it goes. Let's see how they're using this in an activity.
Let's make a choice from our picture book. What body part do you need next? You want eyes.
I want eyes.
We are using pictures to communicate with Rage, to help him communicate when he's not using his words. It helps build his expressive vocabulary through pictures.
What's next?
We have learned all kinds of things about Rage, that he knows his body parts,
I want
his
mouths.
colors and shapes through pictures, where before we did not know this.
What's next? I want arm. You want yellow arm or white arm? White arm.
Good down, good job.
2 arms. 1 arm. 2 arms.
Nice job, Rage. So this is a typical picture exchange binder. It's full of activities, as well as basic language concepts such as animals, colors. We use it to have children who are nonverbal request what they want to do, such as doing a puzzle or bubbles. We also use it to learn words such as more and finish to request when they want to be done with something. Rage is using it right now to request putty.
Here, give him another one. So we can strengthen those fingers, and get some fine motor, so we can do things like writing and cutting, and our buttons. Is there more? Pull. Pull.
I want orange. Which one's next? Red. I want red. What color is that?
What?
Red. Where's the horse? Horse. Using pictures has also helped Rage find his voice a little bit. What animal's next? What is this? Pig. He says oink, oink. Where's the pig? Oink, oink.
Okay, so just some points I want to point out from this video. So they also said that with this child, they really understood and realized certain language skills, certain words, certain things that he understood, such as colors that they didn't know he knew before that. And when they introduced PECS, they really understood and realized, hey, he has a lot of language. He really does understand a lot of things. That's really an important point with AAC in general, is that beforehand, before introducing these AAC systems, before giving the child the chance to communicate, sometimes we think, oh, he's not going to understand it, he won't know. But really that's unfair, because children really have a lot of potential, and they sometimes don't show you their potential until you give them the opportunity to show it to you. And that's an important point. And another point I wanted to make, I don't know if you noticed, but when Rage was asking for a color, let's say, or an animal, let's say he gave the pig. Oh, you want the pig? Okay, so we gave the picture icon of the pig to the instructor. And what did the instructor do? She said, I want pig. She was expanding his MLU. So he was only giving her pig, but she was modeling greater language, which is always nice. We always want to model more language than what they're giving you. So you're increasing and expanding their MLU as they're, he's at the stage of just using one MLU, one icon to request, but she's still modeling the I want beforehand, which is really nice. And another last point, which was pretty clear, she said at the end, was that this using PECS really increases speech production, because at the end you saw he tried saying horse, he tried saying certain words, and that came from being able to communicate communicate, and being able to, say what he wanted and ask the things that he wanted, ask for the things that he wanted. And that gave him the ability to, work on his speech, because every time he gave the picture icon, his clinician kept saying, oh, you want pig, 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 and he kept hearing the word, and then he, in essence, produced it.
Let's make
So now we're just going to quickly list the pros and cons of text. So some of the pros are that it teaches the children the basis of communication, like I said multiple times. It's not really very costly, right? You can make them at home, you can make them on your own. Someone said they cut out of a Cheerio box for Cheerios, or they, took out of magazines. It's really very simple to make yourself. And it gives students quick and easy access to communication. Exactly. So some of the higher tech devices are really nice, really robust language, but they take time to get, whether you're going through the DOE, putting in an application till you get a trial date, till, the whole process is lengthy. And it really is good to have a child use some kind of communication, use some form of communication in the interim while they're waiting for an AAC device. And it's very simple to implement. That's also another point. And the cons are that it is limiting in a certain sense. So it's only really requesting. So that's like, it's obviously not only requesting, because there is commenting and there is the ability to be social, but in essence, it's not so much that. It's really focusing more on the requesting portion. And also, communication is limited to the pictures available. So that is true. It is limited to the pictures available, meaning if you have a child who wants something in your room, let's say I'm in my speech room and I don't have an icon ready of that item, that's, the child's not going to be able to request for it if I don't have a picture of it. Well, so therefore the adults have to plan for the pictures that are going to be needed. So that's a little bit challenging. And I see someone said for the con, there are social PECs I've seen used. Yeah, so there are some social PECs, but again, PECs is not so, social, because you're not really able to have much of a conversation. There are, you can look online, you can see certain social questions, social things, but amongst peers, it's very difficult for peers, to teach, 5 children in the class, all with autism, to teach the children how to, socially interact with that is difficult. And now we're going to go on to iPad applications. So again, there are so many iPad applications. There are so many out there, so many options, and obviously it's dependent on each child and their needs and their abilities. And it's really important to understand that, because I'm not going to be going into every single application on what's good about each one and what's not good, because that's not what this course is about. This course is to give an overview, give you an understanding of AAC, give you an ability and empowerment to, use AAC in your everyday routine with the children you work with. And it's really for an evaluator to decide what application to use. I'm going to go through some of them, give you some insights, some, pointers, but I'm not going to go so in depth with this. So iPad applications. So here are some names of some iPad applications. There's GoTalk. This one over here, the I like bubbles, orange, Play-Doh playing, that's GoTalk. We have Touch Chat, which is at the top right over here, where the child is using a full sentence. I want to watch a movie. We have Snap Core First, we have Toby Dynavox, we have ProLoco to Go, which is this one, ProLoco to Go. We have LAMP, Words for Life. So there's really a lot of different ones. There's pros and cons to each one. And again, an evaluator will decide and recommend, together with the speech therapist and all the different educators involved in the student's life, as to which program, which application would be best for the child. And there's so many features within each of these applications. Some of them, have a sentence bar at the top. Like in this one, it says, I love to talk with my ProLoco to Go, where they, select the icons of what they want to say, and then they tap the top to generate a full sentence. But also GoTalk over here in the top left does have that feature, but for this specific child, there is no sentence bar because they set it that way. A lot of times the children that are very often stimming off the sentence bar, we take that away for a little bit so they get used to the communication aspect. We can put it on at a later time, but sometimes at the beginning we like to keep off the sentence bar. Okay, so here, let's move on. Here's a child using, this is, I believe it's Touch Chat. Let's watch him use his Touch Chat.
My name is Orion.
Orion is nonverbal, but he has lots to say.
Do it again.
I am 5 years old. I have a brother named Sara.
Using an electronic program called Language Acquisition through Motor Planning, he is able to express himself by selecting pictures, and then the iPad generates his speech.
Drink. Apple juice.
Yes, that's apple juice. Good job. High five.
For Orion's mother, hearing her son's own words for the first time was an emotional experience.
He asked for a banana. Oh, I cried. I cried a lot.
So much so that she now has a tattoo of a banana on her arm.
You know, everyone waits for their child to talk for the first time. That's one of those big milestones. And this was just an amazing thing that we could do with the tablet.
Before the kids reach the stage that Orion is at with this tablet, they first learn how to communicate with simple images. They're using a system called PEX, or Picture Exchange Communication System.
She told me, I want to pee. To go to the bathroom? Let's go.
A lot of times children with autism have a great number of behavioral difficulties. They have tantrums, that they have difficulty with others understanding what they want. Once the world of communication is opened up, it allows them to focus on what they want and be understood, and decreases all of those other things.
The children learn to use pictures to indicate what they want, and now that's been extended to learning how to do that digitally.
So where that might be viewed as a bit different 15, 20 years ago, now we're very excited to see kids being very socially accepted, using devices that everybody uses.
And once they get the hang of it, it's amazing how much these nonverbal kids can actually have to say.
What did he just tell you? That he likes vanilla butterscotch and strawberry ice cream.
So they're able to communicate everything they want to say.
Yes.
Well, there are currently more than 200 children using this technology here at Grandview. The hope for the future is that they'll have their own communication technology lab so that they can offer this to even more kids. In Oshawa, Audra Brown, City News.
Okay, so this is just really nice to see at the mom, how she gets so emotional talking about how her child using his words for the first time. And yes, it's not verbal communication, but at the same time, the child able to communicate, they're able to say what they want, when they want it. And it's really, really nice to see this progress in this process.
My name is Orion.
Here we see another child communicating using the app Proloco to Go. So a lot of the apps are similar and it's hard to see the differences. And then again, we would, really like to see just the different availability of the different kinds of apps and different things that they can use.
My name is Tommy.
Dog. Woof, woof. Woof, woof.
My name is Rose. Hand mixer, give. Me. Hand mixer.
My name is Emily. I love it. That was so cool. I love it. That was so cool.
Being nonverbal
Doesn't mean
we can't speak.
we want to show you who we are.
Anywhere and anytime.
Okay, so that was Proloco to Go.
My name is Tommy.
And here's another one, but I see the chat is buzzing. I see someone saying, wow, that's incredible. I'd be happy to have my nonverbal son speak for the group at the end. He is classified nonverbal and will be 14 in 2 weeks. He started on PEX and said his first word around age 7. He speaks in approximations and has developed verbal language. Wow, that is incredible. It is not very clear, but I would love to show people where you can end up from being PEX going through the whole myriad of interventions leading up to the iPad. He still uses an iPad to communicate, but wow, that is incredible. I would love to see that. Joshua, if you can help us out at the end, we can work that out. Are the apps, that's really, really incredible. Let's see if we can get that, because I think that would be very interesting for everybody to see. Okay, are the apps free or are they expensive? So the apps are expensive. They are available for purchase in the App Store, but I would recommend, not doing it on your own, whether going through the DOE, having someone evaluate your child, deciding which application would be best for your child, and going through the process that way instead of just doing it on your own. How long does it take for children to really learn to use PEX or the iPad? Again, that's really specific to each child, and every child is different and every child is an individual. And we really have to take it as a case-by-case basis. So let's watch this video of another child here.
Did you have a good day at school? Yeah? Who did you see at school?
So here's a child having a conversation with his mother at the end of his day. This is really nice.
Mr. Nick.
You saw Mr. Nick. Did you see anybody else?
Miss Tina.
You did?
Tina.
Did you see any of your friends?
Bella.
You saw Bella. Is Bella. Do you like Bella? Yeah. Hey, what's your favorite color?
Colors. Black.
Black's your favorite color? Hey, what's your phone
My phone number is 816-847-6637.
Cool. Hey, who did you see on Thursday that said ho, ho, ho?
Santa Claus.
You did. Did he say ho, ho, ho? Yeah, ho, ho, ho. Good job. Hey, what's your favorite food? What do you like to eat? Can you show me? What do you like to eat for a snack?
Cracker.
You do like crackers. What do you like to eat for lunch?
Pizza.
Yeah. What is your favorite drink? What do you like to drink?
Drink. Chocolate milk.
You like chocolate milk? Is it pretty yummy? Hey, who's this over here? Who's over on the couch?
Drink. Alex.
It is Alex. Can you tell Mommy bye-bye?
Goodbye.
I love you. Bye-bye.
Okay, so I see Joshua responded, so that's excellent. We will provide some time at the end of the presentation for you to show the participants. That would be really interesting, and we're looking forward to that. Okay, so let's go back to this child. We saw having a very typical conversation with their parent, you know, answering all the questions, telling his mother about his day, and which is just really nice to see that this is a possibility. Here's another child using a device. This is the Tobii Dynavox, which is really nice for the child is actually not able to use their hand like I spoke about earlier, and the child is using the eye gaze system. And it's really nice to see this where she's using an eye gaze system, and you'll hear the mom talking about it as well.
Hi.
Hi. My name is Ava.
With Rett syndrome, she knows what she wants to do, but the motor planning piece is not as easy for her. And so with communication, when you talk, you know, you're using all the muscles in your mouth and your tongue, so it sort of manifests itself there with communication. I was really excited to try it, but I knew that I wanted something that was a little bit more expansive for her, more ways to express herself. The Snap Plus Core First, when I checked it out, it had a lot more options in terms of navigation, had some options in terms of grammar that I thought that might take her a little bit further in the long run. So she'll go to quick phrases and she'll be able to answer yes or no or no way, which we hear that a lot. And then she'll be able to jump back into an activity pretty easily with the navigation that's there. We see her experimenting quite a bit with the keyboard and with the word prediction, which is nice. The ability to determine the grid size. We've played around a lot where right now she's mainly in a 7x9 grid, which is exciting because there's a lot more buttons, so a lot more options for her. A lot less navigating for her too, so she can say a lot more, especially on the core words page where it's all there for her. So she can flip in and out of using a phrase to say, hey, that's no fair, and then flip back into core words to say that she likes something or she doesn't like something. I think it's going to take her through her elementary school years. She'll grow her vocabulary and she'll start to add words here and there and really grow into being an all-around communicator using Snap Plus Core First. So our number one goal with Ava is to make sure that she's literate. That at school, she participates in all sorts of literacy activities while using her software to help her communicate. And she's already displaying some of those literacy skills that are necessary. So when she puts together two words, like cake, not only is she thinking that, but she's going a step ahead and she's putting words together. To me, I think is a stepping stone to literacy.
I am funny.
Okay, so that's really incredible. It just goes to show technology is so, so incredible, and what we can do. How this child who has Rett syndrome has difficulty using her hands to control a device, could use her eyes. The device can track her eye gaze and see what she's looking at, and that's the way she speaks. It's really, really an incredible. It's amazing how technology is so, so incredible these days. So now we're gonna have a little bit of an interactive portion, which will be fun. So if everybody could just get out a piece of paper near them or do it on their phone, whatever works. Take out a blank piece of paper and draw 16 squares on the paper. So we're gonna kind of make like our own typical communication board. It's just gonna represent a typical communication board like this. Just make it clear, 4x4, a table, 16 boxes. And I want you to pretend that you're going to a fast food restaurant, okay? And I want you to take a few minutes to fill in your 16 squares with words or phrases that you think you may need in this situation. So I'm gonna give you guys a few minutes just to take the time to fill in your communication board and put different words that you think you'll use when you're going to a fast food restaurant. So I'll give you guys another minute and then we'll take your comments and suggestions, and I'm gonna fill in one here for everybody to see on my communication board. Okay, so you can start giving me your suggestions in the comments. Tell me what you think we will need in this situation in a fast food restaurant. Okay, so someone said water. Let's put in water. Bathroom, okay. Let's put in bathroom. Okay, I'll just, make this a little dark. I see bathroom, I see fries, I see more, please. Coke, okay. No, thank you, that's nice. No, thank you. Table, chair, juice, napkin. Love the participation. Thank you all for participating. Love the enthusiasm here. Eat, I like that, okay. Straw. Listening to music. More, please, I put on already. Ketchup, that's a good one. Ketchup. Can I have, that was nice. Can I have nuggets? Okay, so thank you all for your enthusiasm. Appreciate that. Love the participation. So here we have our communication board filled out by all of you. And I'm sure some of you have what you need in front of you. You made your own. And now let's go through this. So we have a communication board. And now let's walk through some typical scenarios at a fast food restaurant. And we'll see how well we can communicate in these scenarios. So just interesting, will be interesting to see using our communication device and board that we created with just 16 squares. Let's see how well we could communicate. So first, you need to place your order at the counter. How many of you guys can do this? Let's look back at our communication board, and if you want to place your order, so I see we have fries, I see we have Coke, I see we have juice, nuggets, not bad, okay, so we can, if this is what we wanted to eat, if those were things we wanted, you want ketchup, juice, nuggets, Coke, fries, I see, so we do have some food there, so that was nice, so we probably can place an order. I don't know if it'll make much sense, I don't know if the person will be able to understand, but for the most part, probably using fries, juice, nuggets, you'll get across your point somehow. How about the people that did their own board? Do you guys have, those words that you would need to place your order? I don't think we would be able to, actually, that was nice. Whoever suggested, can I have, that was nice because we could ask, can I have juice, Coke, fries, nuggets? So that really would work, which is nice. So I'm glad we have that, can I have, which makes it a more full sentence. Let's see the next scenario. The cashier gives you the total, but you don't have enough money with you. How many of you can ask for help? So that's really, really interesting how, you know, let's go back to our communication board and see, can we ask for help? She gave you the total, you don't have enough money with you. Look at our communication board. Is that going to help us in that scenario? Not really, because what's he going to do? Straw? I mean, you don't have enough money with you. How are you going to communicate that? So that would be kind of difficult. You got your food, but they gave you the wrong drink. How many of you can ask for help? Let's look back and see. Water, not going to help me get another drink, right? So if they gave you the wrong drink, how many of you can ask for help? From the suggestions we have here, I don't think that's possible. No, thank you. That's right. No, thank you. So you can say no, thank you, but then what? You know, how do you follow up with that? How do you no, thank you. Okay, and then it just you know, it would be difficult with the words that we have here. And as you're eating, one of your family friends enters the restaurant. How many of you can get his or her attention or have a typical conversation? How many of you who do, how many of you who made your own communication board can get the attention of someone who enters the restaurant that you know and you want to say hi to? Can any of you have a conversation? I don't know, you tell me from your boards that you made, but from the one we have here, I don't think it's really a possibility. That's true, you could wave hi, that's right, you can wave, which is where, you know, the nonverbal communication, the NoTech AAC comes in. But more than that, having a conversation would be kind of difficult, right? Not really, it's not really a possibility. So that just really leads us into just this demonstration. This interactive portion is really just to bring across a point of we really have to make good choices when it comes to word selection on an AAC device. And that's why a LowTech AAC is limiting in a certain sense, because if you're gonna have these LowTech AAC with just boards of just specific words for specific scenarios, it's very difficult because the child will have to flip through so many different pages to get what they want. And using words like nouns, where you have chair, you have table, you have straw, you have Coke, juice. Yeah, you might be able to order your food at a restaurant because you have lots of food, but is that gonna help you communicate in other scenarios? Which makes it really, really difficult to program a device to be, you know, really good and robust and have the language that's necessary. So we're gonna go into now the 4 main principles of when you're setting up a device and when you're using a device, what you should really look out for and what you should make sure to implement and what time and what to really be aware of when you're using the device to make the communication opportunities as incredible and successful as possible. So we're going to start with the main principle, the 4 main principles: access, modeling, core vocabulary, and communication opportunities. So let's start with access. So consistent access to AAC systems is crucial to become familiar enough with the system to learn it and ultimately be consistent. We need to have the child accessing the AAC system all times, all scenarios, all environments. There's 3 alls: all day, all the time, all environment. Because if the AAC system is just utilized in the speech room, it's not going to help the child communicate in the classroom. And if the AAC device is only used in the classroom, it's not going to help them communicate at home. And that's why access is so, so important. We really need to give the child access to the communication device everywhere and every time. And I said this earlier, I don't know if you heard it or made note of it, but it's a very important thing to take note of. When you're a caregiver and you're helping a child, or you're a parent, or you're a teacher, whatever, you know, your profession is and wherever role you play in that child's life, it's really important not to take the communication device away. And even if the child's stimming off it, even if the child is using the AAC device to do something that seems to you like it's not really communication, that's exploration. That's the child using the AAC device just to explore and just to see and just to, you know, figure out how to use it and how to implement it. But by taking it away, picture a typical child where, you know, the child is playing around with language, right? When a baby's born, they're, you know, babbling, ba, ba, da, da, ga, ga. Does that make any sense? Not to me. My child, I have a 1-year-old baby, and he's saying things gibberish. It doesn't sound like anything, but if you make it meaningful and you say, oh, really, you want this? Oh, okay. And making their words meaningful and reinforcing those, you know, that, you know, stimming or that those words that don't seem meaningful to you is really important. And if you think of it this way, it's just sad. Like if you're taking away an AAC system from a child because they're stimming off it or they're, you know, throwing it or whatever, you're basically duct taping their mouth shut. Like not even giving them, like taking away their voice, taking away their ability to speak and communicate, which we really, really do not want to do. So access is number one. Another point, what's the other main principle? Modeling. So we need to model for AAC users in their language. We can't just model using regular typical language. An AAC system is very, very different than typical language, right? They have to use motor planning. They have to point to what they want and find what they want on their device. So we need to model for them, not by using regular typical language. We need to model for them using their AAC system. That means that when they need to request for something and you're teaching them how to request for it, you model. You want the chips? I want to eat chips, and show them how to navigate through their device. Show them how to do it so that they can do it on their own, and it really will empower them and show them that you're teaching them. You're not just testing. A lot of times you come in and say, chips, ask me, what do you want? Show me on your device. I want chips, show me. You can't expect the child to know how or when or where to tap or whatnot. You really need to teach the child that, you know, there's a way to do it and we're not testing you and we're happy for you to communicate. I see someone ask, how would we limit talking in circle time? There's no problem with saying you need a quiet voice, right? If a child, it was during circle time and a child was, you know, speaking and it's really time for the teacher to speak, we need to prompt those children, whether they're verbal or nonverbal. You have a quiet voice now, quiet voice, hands down, more quiet voice, right? So we have to really teach the child that there's times for quiet and there's time for speaking. It's like any other child in the classroom. The same way we would prompt another child to have a quiet voice, we prompt the child using the AAC system to have a quiet voice. So some examples of modeling would be labeling items around you, asking for things, saying hi and bye. At the beginning of sessions, I do this a lot with children that are AAC users. We start the session by saying hi. So I'll go on their AAC system and I'll say hi, whatever the child's name is. And then I would say, can you say hi back to me? And then they'll go on and say hi Sara, right? And it really gives that back and forth where there's socialization. We say hi at the beginning, we say hi bye at the end, and I'm using their communication devices, their method of speaking, their communication system to speak with them, which is nice. We could also model requesting for help, right? How do we ask for help? You need something? Oh, we were crying. What's the problem? Ask for help and model and show them how they request for help. Show them how they can share information, answer questions, and so on. And now this brings us to core vocabulary, which is really the main point of our, you know, interactive portion where we discuss that, you know, choosing vocabulary words is really important when using an AAC system. Core vocabulary consists of 80% of what we say, and it's only 200 words, okay? So what are core words? Core words can be used in many scenarios. They're very highly versatile. I don't know if you remember, but at the beginning of the presentation, I showed you a very simple, you know, low-tech board, a communication board, where there were a lot of words that were able to be used in many, many different scenarios. There were words like more, open, close, want, stop, yes, no, I want, help me, mine, and words like that that can be used in many scenarios as opposed to limiting the child's, you know, communication board to just being specifically the classroom and saying center time, you know, and circle time and so on. So we really want to use words that are versatile, that are used in many scenarios, that are used throughout the day, throughout different environments, and so on. So that's core vocabulary. So I just want to give an example of a child that, you know, is in the classroom, right? And I'm trying to think. Okay, so let's say you're using core vocabulary, right? You're teaching a book. Let's say the book you are using is, you know, the scary big green monster, right? So you have two choices. Either you can make it a separate board on their AAC device, just pertaining to that specific book, the big green monster. You might have a picture of the monster, you might have a picture of various things in the book, and they'll be able to, you know, answer your questions based on that lesson about the big green monster. On the other hand, you can ask the child open-ended questions like, oh, what do you see? A monster. What does this monster look like? And keep this questions open-ended where the child will be able to, you know, ask for the things and explain what he sees using adjectives, using core vocabulary, using words like big, you know, in their adjectives where they're describing things, they'll have big, or choosing color green and explaining that it's scary, or different adjectives that they may have on their AAC device in various places, but helping them navigate through their device and helping them use their device to, you know, explain and describe something as opposed to pigeonholing them into specific vocabulary for that lesson. Rather, teach them how to explore their AAC device to say more things. Okay, and then we have communication opportunities. So AAC users need opportunities to practice their new systems, right? We can't just expect them to just use it and learn it on their own. We need to give them opportunities to communicate. And research really shows that AAC users need to use their devices 200 times per day to be effective, okay? So it's not just, you know, using it in the speech room like we said before, but it's also about using the device many times throughout the day, creating those communication opportunities and keeping communication exciting and fun and interactive and, you know, keeping that desire to communicate. And just to reiterate these points, so we want to give the child access, we want to model, we want to have core vocabulary, we want to give communication opportunities. So actually there's a student of mine who we were, you know, starting at the beginning of the year was nonverbal, and we started with PECs, and he was doing really nicely with the PECs, and we felt he was ready to move on to an AAC system. We put in for an evaluation, we filled out the paperwork, we got it in, and we had an evaluation date for March 25th, and then bam, schools were shut down, and this whole, you know, COVID pandemic outbreak, and the system was really, like, the evaluation was put on hold, and which was really, you know, frustrating because we were getting so far, and we were getting, you know, making lots of progress, and we were ready for the AAC system to be put in place, and we couldn't. So we did transition to Zoom, and we actually downloaded a light version of GoTalk, which is available if you guys ever want to look, just like play around with an AAC system. It's called GoTalk Lite. It's available on the App Store. You could download it for free. It's limiting. It doesn't have all the features of an AAC app, but if you want to try it out, you can look at it. And we downloaded that on his iPad at home, and we really implemented lots of, you know, a language where he started out just with one icon, just, you know, his cookies. He loved his cookies, so he was tapping cookies to request his cookies. And the thing that was really nice, that the point I want to really drive home here, is that because we were in his home and I was seeing him on Zoom, seeing him in his home with the things that he likes in his house and with his caregivers at home, it really made the therapy more functional for his home environment, which was really nice. You know, when we have an AAC system and we're implementing it in school, we do speak to the parents, we talk to the parents, we want to hear what they want on it and what they want to see on their child's AAC system. But it's sometimes limiting because we don't really see what's going on at home. But when we were using it through Zoom, we were really able to implement words that he uses in his house or the toys that he likes in his house and really implement it that way. Let's keep in mind certain things. So keep in mind that seeing progress with AAC can take a lot of time and patience, and that's something that we really need to keep in mind. It's not, you know, we just 1, 2, 3, the child learns to use an AAC system. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of patience, and you have to remind yourself that, I like comparing it to typical language development. Take a baby, a typically developing baby. It takes them a full year of exposure to language, of you talking to them, and nonstop. I speak to my 1-year-old, right? Mommy and daddy, and all those words that we want them to say for a full year before we start expecting them to say anything back. That's a full year of language exposure before they say anything that's meaningful. And that's why it's really important to give these AAC users time. Don't rush the process. Don't get frustrated. And it could be very frustrating. It's really stressful when, you know, you're trying to, you know, get the child to say something and you're like, come on, just push the buttons. Like, what do you want? Just say it. And we really need to remember, we have to give the children time. Don't rush them. Just like you're talking to your baby for a full year before they start giving you anything back, it's the same thing with an AAC user.
Hi, I'm Deanna Wagner, and I'm a speech-language pathologist and assistive technology specialist in Phoenix, Arizona. When an individual is first exposed to a communication board or a voice output system in particular, we notice that there's a period of exploration, and sometimes people get worried about that. In verbal kids, as they start to speak, we call that babbling. But when somebody takes a communication device and just starts pushing things and saying stuff and we don't know what they're saying, we somehow think they're doing something wrong, and we need to be careful to remember that that's part of normal development. As your child explores the words in their communication system, You can help them by noticing the different words that they say, and the more you respond, the more they're going to use words that are interesting and powerful. It's important to know your child's interests and to make sure the system is organized so that they can efficiently find the words that they need. As your child's language skills grow, we'll see some combinations of words, such as, don't go, I can do it, can you help? And these are really exciting opportunities that we need to notice and celebrate. Something I always tell parents is to keep in mind that your child's language skills are growing. Take note of how we need to support them as their abilities change over time so that they can have access to a more robust system as they grow.
So she really just drove that point home, you know, explaining to you that when a child is getting that communication device and they're starting to use it, they're starting to, you know, sim or play with it, that's called exploring. And they're just exploring the device and learning it and really understanding how to implement it and how to use it. And they're playing around with it, and that's normal and that's okay, and we have to understand that. Okay, so now here are some intervention strategies that we can use. Just quickly, we'll go through them and then we'll be ready for our Q&A, where we want to keep communication enjoyable. We don't want to be testing our students. We don't want to be testing our children, you know, tell me what you want, I'm not helping you, tell me what you want, you got to use your talker, use your device, tell me what you want. That's not going to get us anywhere. We need to model, we need to show them, teach them how to ask, how we want them to ask, talk to them in their language with their abilities and their capabilities. We want to make the language visual, like we said earlier. Children with autism are visual learners. We want to use photos that the user and the child will recognize. So if that means taking pictures of their things that they love, take pictures of their things that they love so that it makes it more visual for them and they understand what they're asking for. We have a student who we're working with who loves marshmallows, and we use marshmallows a lot. And we're teaching him, we took a picture of a specific marshmallow that he brings into school, and that's what we're using to teach him, you know, requesting, because we want to use something that's meaningful to the child, that the child likes and the child really enjoys. We want to work with communication temptation, right? Like we said before, we want communication to be tempted. We want them to want to communicate. And the way we do that is by using things and using words that the child really likes, the child really wants, and using things that the child really likes and really wants. We want to expand the user's utterance length. Like we saw in that video with that child using the PECs, the higher level child using PECs, where the clinicians were expanding the user's utterance length, they were expanding it. He said orange, they said, I want orange. Always expand, always give them a model that's more than what they're giving you. We want to utilize AAC in all environments. It's not something that's just in the therapy room. It's not something that's just in the classroom. It's got to be implemented amongst all professionals. Take it with them to their OT session. They should take their AAC device with them to their PT session. They should take their AAC device everywhere they're going so that it's their voice and they're really using it all around. We want to teach or model our students, right? We don't want to test them. We want to model for you know, what they're doing and what we want them to say. We also want to pair it with our own voice, right? So we really want to pair the language that the AAC is using, whether it's text or whether it's a high-tech device. We want to pair it with our own voice. Oh, you want the car? Ask me. I want to play cars. Okay, ask me. Oh, you want to play with the cars, right? So we're using both. We're using the AAC system, but we're also using verbal language. And we also want to keep the future in mind. And this is a little bit of a, you know, sometimes people think, oh, the child's not really capable of using a higher tech AAC system. Let's just keep them at the lower level AAC system. And that's not really what we want to do. We want to keep the future in mind. We want to see where we're headed and where the child's headed and where they're going with this AAC device, and start them off in a place that they have a future and they can continue to, you know, build our language and become better at it and more proficient at using AAC. So that's really important in terms of intervention strategies. And then just to, you know, explain why we use AAC, I think it's pretty clear at this point, but just to send the point, you know, make the point more clear, is we want to use AAC because it has a positive impact on speech development. And an important point is also that when these children are using these AAC systems and they're hearing the language constantly, right? They're tapping what they want. I want to play cars. And then they hear it. It ends up building in their mind. And even when the child is stimming off a sound or stimming off a word, they're hearing that word. Let's say they love their cars and they love pushing the car button. Cars, 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 cars. That means they're hearing the language so many more times. Children who use AAC develop speech faster than they otherwise would have. A lot of parents get hesitant, and rightfully so. It does sound a little bit scary at first, like, wow, my child's not going to use his voice. He's going to have this machine that's talking for him. Like, it's overwhelming. It sounds scary. Like, what's going to happen to his words? But in essence, research proves that AAC helps build verbal language, and it really builds those skills, and they develop speech faster than they otherwise would have. So it's hard concept to grasp because it sounds like, oh my gosh, you're going to a totally different way of communicating. And maybe my child will get lazy, you know, like my child won't, you know, be interested in using his voice because it's so much easier to just, you know, click buttons. It's not easier to click buttons. It's a lot harder. It works for children who have a difficult time with verbal production, and it's helpful for those children, but your child is not going to get lazy and just use his device. Once he develops his speech abilities and once he develops verbal language, he will go to using verbal language sooner. It increases independence, right? It increases their ability to be independent. They can request for things. They can get what they want. It increases social interactions. They can be social. They can say hi. They can say bye. They can say, you know, at the end of a session, I have a student who has a difficult time transitioning back from the speech room back to the classroom. So at the end of the session, when he's getting a little frustrated, I have him request on his AAC device, I want to go to my classroom. So at the end of the speech session, he's asking me, oh, I want to go to my classroom. That's social. That's an interaction. That's speaking. You know, and with his words, he wouldn't be able to say that. So he's really communicating a lot more. Those with minimal functional speech also benefit a lot from AAC. So really, it's really important to implement AAC. It's beneficial. It's helpful in a lot of ways. Obviously, different level students benefit differently from different kinds of AAC. But overall, it's really beneficial, and we really see a lot of progress with these kids when it's implemented correctly and well.